PUTINWORKTV. We've enjoyed watching your journey as an artist slash creator in the New England rap hip hop scene. This is a place where we share your stories front and center without judgment or opinion. So let's dive straight the fuck in. How did it all begin, Sanyé? And how do you say your name correctly, just for the record, to get everyone on the same page?
Sanyé.
Sanyé,
Yes,
like
sir. You said it
Kanye,
beautifully,
but
yeah.
he ain't Kanye, he's Sanyé. You
That
feel
one.
me?
Yes, sir.
That
Yes, sir.
part. So how did it all begin, bro? You guide me.
It all began with my family. Shout out my mom, my dad, my father was and still is an underground like reggae artist.
Okay, that's beautiful.
So like I was kind of born into music. I was born into like the creative field and stuff like that. So music was always like very normal to me. So normal to the point I didn't even think of it as a career or anything beyond. Just like, you feel me? It really transformed over the years from being something I just did to something that, like, when I had no voice, that was the medium. I would make a beat if I couldn't really communicate with people, or write lyrics when I didn't really know what I was feeling myself. And then I got into high school, was like, yo, I can actually do something. Like, I can really do something. So let me actually start taking this more seriously in terms of like as a craft, or not just as a craft. That it wasn't that I wasn't taking it seriously as a craft, but more so as like a profession to be respected in a sense. Yeah, and from there it's been a continuous climbing up the mountain, but like loving the journey the whole way through.
That's an interesting way of putting it, man. I couldn't have put it any better myself. So what was it like growing up where you're from? You know, because you might have had so much outside pressure telling you couldn't do it,
Yeah.
or you might have lived in such a desolate situation that you couldn't even imagine the bright side of life, or that you could ever get out of your situation. You thought it was permanent, and you took it personal, and it ended up, derailing your life. So what was it like growing up where you're from? And where are you from?
I'm from, majority of my life, Hyde Park. But started off in Dorchester, so like up until I was like 7 years old.
Dorchester, Boston.
Dorchester, Boston. Right off of like Washington Street. Right where like the Burger King area and all that good stuff is.
The hub.
The hub right there. The mega right there, you feel me? It was very, like, looking back in hindsight, it was a whole bunch of learning experiences that I didn't necessarily know actively I was learning from, but I was learning from. So like a lot of people around me, their realities was much different. It wasn't much different. It was the way that they looked at it. It was much different than me. Like for me, it was, I'm a child. I'm carefree with a lot of things. I'm making so many dumb mistakes. I'm getting my ass whipped left, right, up, down. You feel me?
That discipline.
Yeah, I'm getting that discipline at work.
So you grew up in a Caribbean household. What's your nationality?
Yeah, my mom's Dominican. My father's from the Virgin Islands, St. Croix specifically.
That's an interesting combo. I ain't never heard that one.
Shit, no bullshit, me neither. That's why, no bull. There was a moment in my life where I was going through a strong identity crisis because of that. I don't know my father. I know my father. Pause. It wasn't that he wasn't there. It was more so that because we were having a conversation earlier in terms of how love and you feel me, how that whole expression of it is like.
It's difficult for men to put their pride aside.
Very much so, especially when it's like one thing I've learned from my father is everything he's really done was really to protect us and nurture us in the way that he knew. But that's kind of like, it wasn't a problem per se. It was more so I understand that's where the disconnect was. Because it's like the way that he grew up, or at least from what I understand, and that's also the part where it's like we didn't have those times where we were talking about much more than music, or at least from what I remember. We would, but when it was kind of like, it was more so listen rather than say type of thing. And more so because it's like, listening is what's going to keep you alive. Trying to speak is what's going to get you killed.
That's a bar. Listening is what's going to keep you alive. Yeah. Trying to speak is what's going to get you killed. I might fuck around and write that down while you talk. No shit,
yeah.
Keep going, bro.
But it was a lot of lessons, like a lot of tough lessons that I learned from him. That was kind of like you might not understand at the moment, but you will when you grow up. And at the moment, I'm like,
what?
Exactly. Like, what the fuck are you talking
about?
about? But now I'm at an age where all of those things, like, I'm a product of all of the lessons that was embedded within me. And I've learned to appreciate that. But also at the same exact time, I understand where my frustrations were. And they were valid in that sense. Not to say, like, I'm carrying that grudge or carrying frustrations or da-da-da-da. But it's more so, like, I am old enough to understand, I get why I was mad. I get why my father taught me it like this. I understand the dualities of all of the situations that exist in that specific time and moment. It was meant for me to understand it that way so that way I can progress through it and further progress for myself. Now, yes, it hurt, but it hurt and I grew.
Is there any experience that stands out to you growing up where you're from in Dorchester and later living in Hyde Park that would epitomize what that experience was growing up in Boston, whether it be a negative experience like a robbery or a sudden death in a family or an eviction notice or always being moved around? You know, what was that experience that stood out to you that the world can use to start to understand, you know, what it is you actually have to go through?
I think there's one experience while I was in Dorchester, like I was like 5 years old, and it's not the biggest moment, but it's one that I've reflected on and understood. Oh, this really like shaped my identity or the way I think of things a lot. My brother was down the street from us. He was much older. He was like,
older brother.
Older brother, yeah. Shout out Milo Rico Milo. He's one of the reasons I'm even doing what I'm doing so passionately.
How much older than you?
How old is he right now? Definitely like in his either mid to late 20s. Right now. So back then he was probably like 15, 14 probably.
So what had happened?
He had a lot of friends. He was in a specific type of like
social
culture. You feel me? And that's how I was kind of like through being with him so much. I was not indoctrinated per se, but I learned a lot of stuff. I wasn't knowing that I was learning a lot of stuff, but I was learning a lot of stuff. So I would make a lot of friends with the friends that he had who would come around. People who were much older and had their like not old like their 20s, but you feel me? To me,
you're senior.
Basically, my senior. Like you're 15. Oh my God! Like you're geezer basically. But I respect you for that. But there was a kid who basically took me to a corner store right down the street from me. Right. So in my household, we don't go out. Like I didn't know. I was very sheltered in a sense, or at least like in a mindset type of sense. Whereas like if it wasn't school or if it wasn't that my parents took me, I have no business being there. My brother's was another situation where it's like, all right, but that's my brother. But just to walk down the street, like that's no, because the way that my parents took it was like, nah, this is Dorchester.
Right.
You don't know what Dorchester is just yet.
Exactly.
But I go to the store with this dude, and all I have is a penny. All I have is a penny in my pocket. I'm thinking I can rule the world with this shit. Like this is it. Going to the store, I get a bag of chips. I get this, that, and the other. I put them all on the table. My dude, my senior, he's like, he got his stuff and everything like that. I didn't know how he paid, so I'm just thinking, all right, everything's cool. Go to the counter with all this stuff. The dude's like, all right, you got your change? I'm like, I bet, I got you. Dude looks at me and is like, no bueno at all. And that like, that's one small moment, but that money, it changed the way I looked at so many things.
To face reality.
In a way, it was crazy because I was like, this was the first time I ever had to question, why isn't a penny enough to buy all of this? One,
because you didn't know how the world works.
I didn't know how any of this shit, I didn't know how any of this works. So from that moment, it was like, oh, like, wait, then how much is a house? How much is all of this stuff? Like, how much is my clothes? Because I didn't know how much that cost. Why is there even a car? Like, it went down to a rabbit hole where it's like, yo, capitalism, what the fuck? Socialism, Cold War. You feel me? Like, I'm like growing up into this understanding of like, yo, things have a price, but why? And just that question, that constant questioning, and I'm understanding, like, I'm at an age where I understand that, but like, another part of that same story, because that can go into another rabbit hole, but another part of that same story, I get back home, and my parents were looking for me. They didn't know where I was at. I told them, hey, I was just at the corner store, and I don't remember if it was my mother, or my father. That's how good they beat my ass, but they beat my ass. And that was a moment I reflected on and realized, like, at that moment in time, I'm like, why am I getting what's happening right now? But I reflect on it and I realized, wow, like, they were scared. Like, they were genuinely scared for me. They were
in fear.
They were in so much fear. They were in so much fear. And it wasn't a frustration. It wasn't like they were beating me because they were angry. It wasn't like, I won't say that was just or unjust.
They try to keep you from becoming somebody that they hurt you, to try to stop it.
All of that. Especially when they realized who I was with, too, because they understand my brother's crowd to a specific sense. And when they learned all of that, it was like, they didn't know how to communicate that to me. But what they did know is, you don't like pain, do you? You'll avoid what gets you into painful situations, right? So
only on one way.
Yeah, and so, all of that, like,
it
snowballs.
Compounds.
Yeah.
It compounds, bro. It adds up. And so, you know, when we talk about adding up, I think that music is an accumulation of all the current experiences we've had and emotion released out into sound, into our ears.
Yeah.
And so, what has music done for you to alter your life personally? If you were to sum it up, how has it altered your life?
It genuinely saved my life. Genuinely.
How was that?
There's a lot of dark moments that I went through in my life. So, in terms of losing people, I've had my fair share of that. Good friends of mine that I, to this day, still try to figure out how to reflect on that properly. I've used music as a way to kind of like, at first I thought I was running away.
Medicaid.
Yeah, it genuinely, it was my prescription to myself. It still is my prescription to myself. There was a time I moved in Florida, and it wasn't the best like beginning. I was depressed beyond depressed. Like, I was in a dump of I was bullshit, in some type. Bullshit. It was just like, bro, I'm alive. Fuck, what the fuck?
This is all I got right now.
And it was kind of like, I couldn't see how just being alive could be enough. And there was a lot of things that helped me through it, but one of the biggest things that really pushed, one was my mom. But two, there was a day where I sat down and just started like re-listening to some music that I made in high school, and really like listening to what I was saying. Because at the time of making it, it was like, it wasn't that I was just making shit. It was just, I didn't consume it. I wasn't my own favorite artist. You feel me? Like, I didn't look at my music as something of value in the way that I look at it now, right? Or something to even reflect on, or something of value, really. But I listened to it and listened to what I was saying and listened to the shared belief in self. The shared, like, nothing's gonna stop me because I have myself at the end of the day. The shared, like, if I ever feel alone, here I am with what I've created, these in a sense, like, conceptual children, but also like pieces of my identity, pieces of my history that are forever immortalized on a recording that I can go back to at any time and reflect and introspect or just gain more value from at any time. And it was like that, the moment that I understood, damn, like, I'm literally time traveling right now, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like,
yes, it does. It does. It's like a portal. And that
yes.
ties into my question. It's, what is your creative process and what you learn the most from it? You gotta put yourself in a certain place for that Sanyé to give his audience what he needs. You understand what I'm saying?
I think first and foremost, the audience isn't a part of it is, but it's not a part of the creative process.
So what is your creative process?
It differs all the time. It depends on, like, I can't even say an average. I really can't say an average. I really can't.
Well, what are the things that always happen when you are getting into a zone of creative processing? Because if it's creative, it can't be the same thing, everything. every time, because change is the only thing that's permanent. It's constant.
Yes.
So what is it that happens every time you need to get into a place of creative process, and would you learn the most from it? Having done that multiple times and seeing yourself get into that mode, knowing you can do it when you need to.
Yeah, I always I really let the instrumentation speak to me, whether it be already created and recorded or I'm hearing it in my head type shit. If it's hitting here, I don't even like the best songs I've ever made. In my opinion, I didn't have to like write more than 30 minutes or really even 15 minutes, genuinely. And the reason why is like it's just flowing. It's just coming out. It's the moments where it's like, oh, I didn't even know this part of me existed when I'm listening to the track or when I'm making whatever I'm making.
You found something out about yourself.
Yes.
So what motivates you the most?
Really myself. And by that I don't mean that in an egocentric way. I mean that in the sense where it's like I've learned to fall in love with the process of leveling up. And like whatever leveling up may mean, whether it's spiritually, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, whether it's emotionally,
or monetarily,
however the case may be, I appreciate life. Life itself motivates me. I look around and it's like, yo, like one, I'm alive. I can see this shit. We can hear each other speaking. I can speak to you. I can touch shit. Like that's cool as fuck already on its own.
That's the gift.
That's the gift already on its own. Everything after that is just like, all right, that's leveling up, but it doesn't ever take away from the initial experience of the fact that I can experience on its own. So it's constant motivation. It's never like I'm out of motivation. It's more so just like going back to ground zero, if that makes sense. And ground zero being that space where it's like, oh, I'm here. I'm in the present.
So what that's called is called mindfulness. You're being mindful of being alive. And so being mindful of being alive allows you to tap into your creativity because you actually feel alive. And you're doing the things that are aligned with your purpose. You ever thought about that?
Not like that. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir, Sanyé. So, what are some things you wish somebody would have pulled you aside, like, yo, Sanyé, this is a breakdown. Boom, 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 boom. This is what you need to know. And you had to go through the trenches to find out what it is now. So, what do you wish, somebody would have prepared you for? If you had a mentor, you had a coach, you had an experienced musician or an artist, or just somebody who had a family member who was in the business and they knew how it went from an outside perspective. What are the things you wish you would have known? Damn, somebody should have told me. That type of thing.
I think so many things. Not so many things.
So if you could break it down, give me your top 5.
Top 5. Looking at cash flow as an energy exchange.
Okay, big.
Not even constant, but believe in yourself.
Big.
I think that's something that is said and it feels kind of like a regurgitation, but it's very cool when you see somebody who truly does believe in themselves.
You feel it.
Exactly.
You don't just hear it, you feel it.
You feel it. It's like, it's...
Okay, what's the third?
The third would be... the journey inside is more rewarding than the journey outside. The
journey itself. Yes. Okay, so what's the fourth?
Fourth would be the universe is inside you.
That's some esoteric commentary. If y'all not hip, you gotta hit, but I know what he's saying. Yeah. And the last but not least.
I think I'll keep. You know what? I'm gonna save that.
Okay, so we got something tucked in a box for later.
It's more like I feel it. I don't have words for it. And I don't want to like.
Yes, you don't want to disrespect the thoughts.
Exactly. That.
Okay, so how does your personal life and your creative process interfere? When your real life, started off with a government name, and now there's Sanyé, who has all these experiences too. He's an identity too, and you have another ego, the one that was born to parents.
Yes.
And learn to respect them both as your caretakers.
Yeah.
You didn't always start off as Sanyé, so when does your personal life and your creative process meet in the middle? You're like, oh fuck, here they've meshed.
Yeah. Honestly, every waking moment for the past 5 years has felt like that mesh. I feel like Jailin Barris is my name. I appreciate it. I love it. You can find it anywhere, so there's no problem in saying that.
Can you repeat it for me one time? That was smooth.
Jailin Barris. Jailin Barris. My parents named me that. The way that I think they interpreted it is Jailin means God is healing. Barris Hammond. Shout out Barris Hammond.
You got spiritual protection behind your name.
Yeah, that's the big one. I think that's something I always try to like really incorporate and understand, continue to understand. There's always lessons that come from the name itself, and also Sanyé. Sanyé is something in which I literally was in my room like making noise, and then Sanyé came out, and then the next day I went to school and was like, oh, I got the name, I got this artist name finally, like my name's Sanyé. And people were like, oh, Sanyé, like Kanye. And I was like,
you didn't even think about that.
I wasn't even there.
But it's going to work. Because they're going to always think about that the first time they hear your name. Exactly.
Because it was something where it's like...
That's a marketing scheme, too.
So many people say that, no bullshit.
That's a marketing scheme. Because the thing is, it's only their subconscious that's thinking about Kanye. Yours came from a place of pure creation, so now they'll never forget it.
Yes.
It's a combination of two.
I really fuck with you, bro. I really fuck with you.
That's a fact.
To go like a little deeper into the question, to really answer the question, I think the separation has become something that is on itself a journey to really explore. Sometimes I don't know the difference between Sanyé and Jailin.
And that happens.
And I try to be very mindful towards that, because there is a big difference, but there isn't a big difference. It's being very careful with the independent values of both, but also understanding that they not just complement each other, but they in a sense are each other. It's like, to me, it's like absolute duality in a sense. It's like Sanyé is Jailin, but Sanyé is not.
Isn't. Yeah, exactly.
At the same exact time.
You know why I don't think you're crazy for saying that is because I believe that people have different personalities and they refuse to accept it. You are never the same person with everybody.
Yes.
With the person I'm here with you is not the same person I'm gonna be with another artist, because it forces me to bring out a different aspect of myself.
Yeah.
Think about every time you got in the booth, it was never the same once.
Never, yeah.
So a different aspect of you come out every time.
Yes.
And you have different personalities that take over.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like if you're around your family, you need to be caretaker and protector. You're going to be the one that's on guard, watching for anybody to say something slick or do anything. But if you're with your homies, you can let loose. And you can be a little more jovial and humorous and make jokes.
In a sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Things you wouldn't dare say around your parents. So I'm telling you, it's all about energy, and that's very important. And you mentioned that. So what do you try to give your audience with your music? Since you know energy is so important, and there's spiritual practices to everything. So what is it that they should be getting from Sanyé in their music?
There's so many ways. Okay.
If you could pin it down to one, the most important one to you, to give your audience with your music, what is it?
Literally inspiration. That's like I feel like that's one of my reasons for being.
And what does it mean to inspire to you?
I think there's a quote by either Nipsey or somebody. Somebody correct me if this goes on like a place where there's comments or something.
Don't quote the author. I'm trying to hear the quote.
But the quote goes: the greatest gift that a human being can ever give to somebody
is inspiration. It is Nipsey.
It is Nipsey.
Yes,
shout out
Nipsey.
Confirm
that. I'm wearing the hoodie today.
Amen. Yeah, no bullshit. Rest in peace to God, no blow. The king, he forced it.
That's a fact. Do you know why the inspiration is so important though?
I think, at least the way that I internalize it, is the same thing in terms of believing yourself. Like if I watch somebody who truly believes in themselves, do everything that they believe in themselves to do and be, and then tell me, yo, believe in yourself, because, like, you got it.
This works.
It's just, bro, it's
just common sense at that point.
And seeing that, like, watching how, like that's an energy exchange in itself, in a sense. It's like you're amassing, you're granting so much positive energy, but at the same time, it's not like you're granting it. It always existed. You're just showcasing, oh, like, I don't have to change myself. I don't have to be something else. Like, what already exists within me is not just good enough. It's everything, in a sense, if you allow it to be.
Right. So for somebody listening to this, what would you tell somebody who's ready to believe in themselves? They've listened to Sanyé and they've convinced themselves, you know what? If people who have believed in themselves and put in all the work required to achieve whatever desire it was, I can do it too. And they've been inspired by this. And say that happens. What are you telling somebody who's trying to start their careers and get to where you're at, where they can believe in themselves, where, like Kia mentioned, you can live in a crib in Orlando for a year and make it work with your best friends and have great experiences. So how can they get there?
Think one of the greatest things, never take failure as a failure. Like, there's a such thing as failure, but it's not like oh damn, I failed, I should stop. Like, that's when you actually fail. That's when you actually, like, lost. If you lose the battle to yourself, you lost. But even when you lose the battle to yourself, you didn't actually lose. It's just a moment of you saying in your mind, oh damn, I lost, so I lost.
Moment of weakness.
Exactly. It's kind of like, don't allow yourself to be your own worst enemy. And easier said than done, most definitely. But if that is the case, where you are your own worst enemy, genuinely go into yourself and ask why. And you'll kind of, I can't guarantee that you'll find.
Because you got to try, you got to be willing.
Exactly. You have to, like, go through that, like.
That emotion.
Yeah.
But that is the roadmap.
That is
I
definitely,
think that's some great fucking advice, bro. Let me ask you, like, I don't like to say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? But I like to say, what are you going to become in the next 5 years? What are you looking to become? Because that's important. You know, 5 years is a lot of fucking time. Because most in 1 year, your life can change. So, Sanya's already made this journey this far. In the next 5 years, what do you see yourself becoming?
I see myself becoming a greater reflection of my inner being. I
think that's beautifully put. Honestly, I don't even think you gotta expand on that, but I want you to, because the way you said it was masterful.
I appreciate. Sanyé to me always has represented a mirror. The name,
reflection of yourself,
a reflection of myself, a reflection of other people. For instance, when people listen to my music, however they interpret it is based off of however they view their own lives and their own perspectives. And I've had people come to me about a song that I wrote, not to be like, oh, I wrote the song, so I know what it's about. But it's literally something where it's like, wow, I would have never
assumed.
I would have never gotten that from the song that, like, I wrote. And that was another piece that I genuinely learned very quickly. The moment that you create art, it's no longer yours.
It's not, because now everybody's going to pull what they need from your music.
Exactly.
Because you already gave them what you needed.
Exactly.
It was the expression.
Exactly.
Now they're going to take whatever, man, that's beautifully put. So the state of New England, the New England scene, Massachusetts, Boston, all the cities surrounding it, Framingham, Chelsea, Lynn, and so on and so forth. Where do you see us in 5 years? Are we breaking into the industry? What's gonna happen? We kicking the door down? Just talk to me.
When I tell you I have faith isn't even enough of a word. I think New England is going to be its own economy, have its own, like, be its own sector of not just the United States, but the entire world, like, financially, creatively. Boston is most definitely a leader of so many different industries already as it exists, but, like, with the people I've met, with the connections that's already been built, with things that's already forming, like, we were having this conversation about how we're already in a place of history as we speak, like,
building something.
Like, who knows, in 5 years, this whole shit's about to, not even who knows, like, this shit's going to be,
you know
like,
me?
You feel me? Like,
put some respect on my name!
Bro, on everything that's happening, like, to me, it's not even. I don't even need to say there's no doubt. Like, to me, it's just like, it's so exciting. It's just every single domino piece that's falling over to the next one. And the biggest part is, when I say inspiration, I genuinely, like, I see it. Like, this is inspiring inspiration. Because this is literally something that's inspiring me, which I understand I will be, not even to be like, this is the point I'm trying to be the inspiration, but more so, like, I understand regardless of, like, just me, based off of what I want to do, just based off of what I want to do and what I'm going to achieve. I understand, okay, a lot of people will find me a subject of inspiration. So with that, it's not to be like, I got to trend carefully. It's more so, all right, I'm mindful of that. But I also want to make sure it's understood, like, you can literally do better. Like, you can do better than whatever you're seeing right now. And it's not to say, like, I suck ass or anything in the sense, but it's literally to be like, I'm human too. Like, every single person, this whole thing is the product of human ingenuity. And this can upgrade and upgrade and upgrade. And you can build this over here in this sector of the world, and you can build this over here in this sector of the world. And that's going to inspire people who are going to build shit. That's going to inspire people that's going to build, you feel me? And it's just like, you live in a world full of just inspiration to the point where it's like, yo, what the fuck is bad?
Domino effect. It's so refreshing to hear you speak with so much conviction, resolve, and belief and faith. All those things accumulating together is what we need from young people like you, who are stepping out of their box, doing what they're supposed to do, and it makes other people say, you know what, it might be scary, but they're doing it. Yeah. So why can't I at least try? Yeah. You know, 95% of life is wasted because we don't try. And that's what it is. Not because we don't get it done, not because we can't think it's possible. We don't even try sometimes. Yeah. And we hold ourselves back from being the most powerful version.
I agree. You can't let fear stop you from shit.
You cannot. And I know it must have been fearful when you had your biggest moment in your career. So what was it?
Actually, no bull. I think my biggest moment that impacted me is getting those DMs that said, yo, your music saved my life. That, like, beyond...
Shook you.
Bro, like, I can do a show at Rolling Loud. I can eat a dinner with Jay-Z and get $500K. I can buy out the John Hancock building. I can buy out the Prudential. I could rule the world. Not that I want to, but it's like I can do all of these shits.
And it wouldn't amount to that love.
Nah, because it's like I didn't start when I started being like I want to actually put out music to and for the world. I didn't really. I couldn't. That wasn't some things being said like that. I would have never thought, because this is the reason why I make music is really because it saved my life and because it continually saved my life. And like I thought, like in that sense, I'm alone. You feel me? Like it was so interesting. Where it's like prior to really putting out the music, it was like, damn, like can I really do this? There was a whole lot of fear in terms of, you feel me? Like a whole lot of doubt in that. Where it's like just to put out a song on SoundCloud, it was like, oh my god, I'm about to put this shit out. And the moment I did that,
and it's okay for you to feel like that.
Yes, it is very much.
That's what you're trying to tell these people, right?
Yes.
It's okay to feel like that.
Yes.
But the trick is you got to start. You got to start.
Yes.
So that leads me to my next question. What are your intentions with your career? Where do you want to take this? Because you did tell me your guiding forces in your life and what has changed you. So my last question for you are, what are your intentions with your career? Where do you want to take this?
I want to literally provide value to the entire world. I want to, this is going to sound like a lofty goal, but it's the goal that kind of like helps me.
It should scare you. Yeah, what is it?
I want to be so rich, right? And by rich, I don't mean just monetarily, but like when people think of rich, you feel me? So for that.
Resources, we'll say.
Resources. I want to be so rich that when I die, I can give a will to literally every single human being on earth and they'll be good.
That's one I've never heard before. I give you props for that, Sanyé. Hey, I want to say, bro, we've had a great interview. You came in here, you did your thing, and the amount of faith I've heard that you've had in this organization, in yourself. I know you've been putting out music. It's been years, and you know this isn't an easy thing. It's not hard for you to. I mean, it is hard for you to keep this going, you know, and it's much more easy to get complacent and say that people don't know what music is, they don't like your music, or to not go to the studio, to not stay up late night, to not put out that EP or that mixtape. So thank you for coming in to Put in Work Studios, Put in Work TV, bro. You came in here, you shared your story, you probably inspired somebody you don't even know. So that's my little outro. If you have anything you want to say to the people, say it now. Thank you for coming to Put in Work TV. Tell us how you feel about it, and that's it.
Shout out Chad. Gigantic shout out Chad. Big shout out Put in Work TV. Shout out the Beans. Shout out God. Shout out everything. No bullshit. Like, but shout out Chad, bro. This is great conversation, bro. You awesome, bro.
My boy, thank you for coming to Put in Work TV, bro. That's the end of it.